All right, I thought I would do a review of a couple games. These are notable because they're relatively low requirements for playing. Um, like my 400 gigabytes, where a standard graphics card now has 8 or 4 or something like that. Virtual RAM. And my crap top has 8 gigabytes regular RAM. Low computer power, low hard drive space, and so on. Basically, if you go to Spiderweb Software, everything except Queen's Wish the Conqueror to 6. Tactical party-based RPGs, you can customize them somewhat or almost fully, basically. And you go on your way with um, with well um, there's thrown bows, swords or melee, and pole arms, and then there's mage spells and priest spells, and there's strength, dexterity, intellect, and endurance for stats. There's also some nature.
Drew, I have to start by asking you, what the heck is an ocean? I'm really gonna talk about it.
Sorry about that. There's also nature lore, arcane lore, tools usage, which is designed for lock picking locked doors or getting past gates that are skill locked behind tool usage. And there's spellcraft, which makes your spells more effective, and magical efficiency, which makes your spells more cost less mana. There's first aid, which restores some health after every battle, and mana after every battle. And it's overall reasonably solid. The stories are different. The game has Avernum is what this is most identical to, basically. This pattern. It's the original game series that the guy made as Exile 1 to 3 and Blades of Exile. Blades of Exile, or Blades of Avernum rather, is on Good Old Games, and so is Avernum 1 to 3, the first edition of it. And then the remake, which is superior in a lot of ways, but also inferior in some other ways, I would think, is on Steam only. Or one of them's on Steam, or one of them's on Good Old Games only, and that's the old Avernum. And then Steam has, I think, just the new ones, and so on. Now, Avernum 4 to 5 and 6 were made with a new engine in between the remakes and the original Avernums. So they're slightly dated, but this is roughly the pattern you'll find. And basically, Avernum 4 to 5, 6 have no big amounts of logistics except spells and scrolls and potions and wands. for a little bit of that sort of magic usage on a character that doesn't have the skills for it or the stuff. His armor interferes with using regular magic typically, and so on. So you can still use a little magic while heavily armored. The remakes allow you to spec into armored casting, so your mage can wear heavy armor and still zap absolute nukes and stuff. And the fourth game is getting remade and either has been released or will be released at some point within the next year, I bet. I might be spending a while talking about them, but they're really fun games and stuff. And like, you can actually like, if you like, I don't know how to put this exactly, but like his stories were started in like 1993 or something, and like those stories in Geneforge 1 to 5 like actually have like relevant commentary on like ways of looking at society and what we're all going through together and stuff and so on. And it's not, I mean, they're really solid basic RPGs, right? But the story in the game world is unique in a large way. Like each of the games has its like some of its own enemies from 1 to 6 Avernum 1 to 6, as well as staples. And then also they got like running themes of like basic enemies that stay the same throughout the games and so on. But also Geneforge 5 or Geneforge 1 to 5 is really interesting because it's based around a person party, and they gradually he fleshes out the class roster and so on. But you can basically you can cheese the game by save scumming, and it's kind of designed to allow you to do that in some sense. If you prepare for fights the right way and so on. It's a top-down or isometric RPG series. Both of them are. But how do I put this? He might have been one of the pioneers of like tactical turn-based RPGs with branching storylines and so on. So like he might Jeff Vogel of Spiderweb Software, which is the company that's on Steam, and it's his original company too. Like is like a one-man programmer, game developer, designer, and balance maker or balancing guy and quality of life and so on. Like he's a one-man indie developer who's like obsessed with good quality. The reason I mentioned Queen's Wish as left out is because personally I didn't enjoy that very much. I liked the system in a way, like it was original-ish, but I didn't know how to play it in a way that wouldn't lock me down skill-wise, basically. So that was like a bit of a struggle, basically. And I don't know, maybe I just went into the high-level area too soon or something like that, but other than those two games, his Avedon 1 to 3, Avedon 1 to 6, and Geneforge 1 to 5 are just peak, well-done games. Queen's Wish is a big experiment, basically, for a unique playstyle. I'm not sure if people like it or not, but for the period of time that I did play it, I kind of found it a bit of a novel experiment. So it's like, okay. He's remade Geneforge 1 to 3, I think. so quality of life updates and so on. And what GeneForge is you pick a main character who's like the hero of the story, and you can create armies of monsters and like customize them, and and you have like a certain amount of like essence points on top of magic, mana, and health. Mana restores relatively quickly, but essence doesn't. So like basic nukes and stuff cost mana, but like the higher grade nukes cost essence. Um, the um, the creatures you create cost essence, and you can absorb them back in partially to get essence back if you're done using a creature or something like that, and so on. And basically, the more you upgrade your creatures in various ways, the more essence they cost individually. But each creature you customize as you create it, and so on. So you can have like I might be exaggerating on the actual number of armies you can have exactly, but like in your single player RPG that's turn based, you can have like 10 weak, stupid, but tough enemy or units for tanking damage while you just cast fireballs or something. Um, or like be a swordsman who, a swordsman who summons like fire breathing or lightning zap breathing, lightning breath monsters, or two bruisers, or two tanks, or three tanks, or something, meat shields. And they can be expendable or they can be super tough, so you can heal them after combat or during it. Um, or you can be like a magic throwing assassin who shoots these things called batons, which are kind of like Fallout weapons in a way, with the guns. Parry is an overpowered skill for melee combatants, but it's a very like power fantasy game in a way. So don't be afraid if you're able to game the system. It's designed to be a bit of a story, but also uh, very customizable experience. And since the story follows basically you getting the power of a god almost, in some sense, constantly throughout it, um, and ever escalating war between creations and creators with multiple factions. I think GeneForge 5 has 5 factions you can join, maybe 6. That tells you something about exactly what's going on with that stuff. Um, yeah. And there's some cultural commentary and a societal discussion on it, and it lets you choose exactly who has the most um, motivating argument for their existence and supremacy and so on. Um, it's a little like, I don't want to say it's like Skyrim exactly, because it's actually better done in a way for the factions. It introduces you to all the factions and lets you decide them between all 5 of them. But like you're you have definite classes with strengths and weaknesses and so on, and the classes all have the same skill sets and so on, but the upgrade points for cost for each different skill is different. So you can play as like there's 3 fields of combat basically. There's summons, magic, and like war fighting skills basically. And you can use your class and customize it exactly how you want. You can even handicap yourself and make like a wizard class or something that's strong with magic, weak with summons, and strong with melee, and then put all your points in summoning if you really wanted to. It wouldn't be advised, but you could theoretically do it, is how it's customizable basically. Now, Avedon is a little different. Avedon is you pick a class character, and there's let's see, there's assassin, druid, sorcerer, and warrior. And then Avedon 2 and 3 introduced the Tinker, which is a unique class, and that's an interesting addition, and so on. And with that one, only the basic strength, dexterity, intellect, and endurance stats are the same, basically. And all the talents and skills and stuff are unique to that class. But of course, you have characters that you can recruit or join you pretty quickly who have one of those classes. So basically, you have a group of 3 at any given time, and you can have 2 out of 3 classes be the same person if you pick the person that's that's your class to be your companion, and the third class person. But you can't have like an all warrior or all 3 people being the same class. And you can do that. But you can also have like 3 unique classes or something like that. So the one you pick is just your favorite playstyle, basically. And so on. I'm big on druid and warrior, maybe assassin or sorceress too. So it's like, okay, you know. Then there's a game called Slasher's Keep. And Slasher's Keep is a game that lets you grind out through multiple lives, increasing stats if you get the right potions and stuff like that, or level up or something. But it dumbs you down stat-wise if you die, and it has drop points for gear for your next run. So you lose all the gear you're carrying on you, but you can drop off gear as like a sort of hand-me-down to your next run, so and so on. Of course, that means you can't use it in this particular run, but you know, maybe that's part of part of the game's trade-offs system and so on. And it has wands in it that zap. I think it has ammo for the wands, or at least magic. Mana, sorry. And it has melee weapons and so on. And basically, the idea is to go through a dungeon with increasing, no, I don't know if I've ever made it past the 3rd level myself, but it's one of those games I enjoy playing once in a while. I'm not very good at it, I don't think, but whatever. It's a first-person dungeon crawler, basically. Kind of like Bit Dungeon or something like that. Or maybe not Bit Dungeon, that might be the wrong one. That might be a top-down one. Then there's another game called Hyperlight Drifter. Now, Hyperlight Reverse or something like that might be a bit of a woke game, and it might be a flop, and it might not be that good. But my experience with Hyperlight Drifter is I never had any complaints. I didn't even know the guy was woke at all. And he made a very good game about his journey through cancer and stuff in a sort of fantasy world and so on. No real world politics particularly, except perhaps that there's a female companion that outshines you in the beginning and then fails and dies, and then you have to win for her for in her memory or something like that. Maybe it's minimalist sort of storytelling, um, so there's no real amounts of dialogue, particularly much in some cases. But there's no big feminist rage 2 kind of moralizing or anything like that. It's just a conventional sort of game. And there's a new game plus mode where or a hardcore mode where you start with the weapons and you all the weapons or something, or you have like 2 lives at any given time at most, and you have to challenge yourself that way to not die when you in other games start with like 2 and then you can move up to 5 total health or something like that. I managed to finish the game and I was very pleased with it. In a similar way to Hyperlight Drifter, but a lot cooler aesthetically, is another game called Ruiner, like ruins, but Ruiner. That game was pure, like, oh my god, the aesthetic was just peak for cyberpunk stuff, while being an isometric action RPG basically. And the abilities were actually really cool. Like they were actually like really amazing. And the visceral nature of like landing a lead pipe on someone's skull, like, oh my god. Oh my god. And like the burning enemies alive and stuff. And like like you can speculate you you don't, like, at least in the first half, you don't have to use guns particularly much. It's just sort of fun to. And in the late game, the guns get way stronger and better, so you kind of use them. And the thing is, I don't mind running out of ammo in that game because the lead pipe attack thing is so good. And I don't mean it's just overpowered. I mean it's like satisfying to use. You know, I'm like the kind of guy who's actually punched people in the face quite often, and like, you know, it gave me that kind of like rush like back then when I was younger and more into fighting and stuff. But in a video game, which is kind of rare because I'm kind of dead inside at the moment. Um, what else is there? Oh yeah, there's Torchlight 2. That's a Diablo 2 clone, basically. But it's really well done. It's got the Ember Mage, the Berserker. It's got the gunslinger sort of style of or wand slinger. I can't remember what they're called. Lore artist, scroll guy, or whatever. Has 3 separate classes, and then it's got the engineer, which is kind of like a mix between a shaman or paladin from World of Warcraft in some sense, except in a single player RPG. And it's a really small game. I think it's about 2.5 gigabytes, and it runs on my crap top even. And it's like, oh my god, it's so good. It's legitimately enjoyable. It's got a lot of enemy variety and like different acts with like different enemies and stuff. And it's got skill synergies and stuff. You can level up. I think you can buy upgrade scrolls or something for abilities or items or something, and different ranks and stuff, and like, or find them as loot or something, and like, you can just you can spec however you want, and like the abilities of the class. Oh no, sorry. There's actually two types of abilities at the same time. There's class abilities that you get by picking perk points or talent points or something like that. And then there's like scrolls that you use to learn a skill, right? Like summon undead, and it summons like 5 skeletons who are archers, or summon undead archers for 5 archers, or summon undead skeletons for 5 skeletons that are melee and tougher than the archers. Or like something like that. And like, they will scale with you. You know, they will actually scale with you a little bit, I think. So it's always useful in some capacity, basically. And the scaling is really smooth, I found. Like one of the things I had, and it's also got a unique aspect to it, which is that every single melee weapon has a cleave to it. Like like staves, polearms, axes, swords, maybe maces too, I think. They all have cleaving with them, so you can hit multiple enemies with it in a swipe. Just regular attacking based on the weapon. And then and they've got animations and stuff like that. And then there's also fist weapons which don't cleave but are extra fast in attack speed. So I picked a berserker with unarmed weapons and so on, and then I picked some sort of 5 magic missiles launching skill based on attack, or wisdom, or intellect, or some stat like that maybe, which did a percent weapon damage or something, and like I could like be like a berserker that like if the enemy's tough and like will stomp me in melee, I can just run around guided magic missiling this guy in a way that scales with my weapons and my stats. Or I can run up and like do the Diablo 2 style assassin stuff and so on. You know, and that's like really fun. That was really fun. There was an engineer I had which has a bit of a stompy stomp, weapon smash, fire ability that kind of blows up on impact with the weapon strike, and a bit of a shield robot for some extra max HP or something, or armor, or shields, like literally shields. And like a healing drone for a little bit of health without relying on health potions entirely or something. Just to add a little bit of tankiness, like a real paladin, sort of. Yeah, and like, I think there's also staves or staffs you can use to melee with, and they're more focused on magic damage types. And then there's wands, which are kind of like Harry Potter zappy wands, basically, except elemental damage focused. And then there's guns. You can get like a shotgun, a pistol, a hand cannon, or a cannon rather. And like those three are basically like the cannon is AoE and high damage but slow firing. The shotgun is AoE damage but faster firing, slightly less damage. And the pistol is like quick damage, single target, and so on. There might even be rifles, but I'm not sure. But I don't think there's a submachine guns. But that's okay because the pistols fire pretty quick, and you can dual wield too. So it's like okay, you know. Yeah, yeah, it's just a really good game. It's tight around the edge. It's really tight gameplay in terms of like the quality of like the way it's put together and stuff. And it's just a beautiful game for the graphics. I mean, like they're kind of simple graphics in a way, but if I remember correctly, oh yeah, and there's also a permanent pet you can have at any given time to help combat or send stuff to town to sell or something like that as well. And like it's just sort of like it can be knocked out and like you have to summon it again or something with a cooldown maybe. But like it's just a useful companion combat companion or like utility companion or something like that. And or both. I can't remember exactly, but like it's a really well knit game basically. Everything comes together really well actually. It's really quality. Anyways, I think I've rambled enough. I've given some game ideas. I've given something about them all basically. Avedon 1 to 3 is probably the most intensive story focus. Based on classes and stuff like that too, in a sort of locked in class, which is unusual for Spiderweb Software's games typically. But like totally locked in, like you can't pick another class's skills at all, basically. But he experiments with his different game series types, and then experiments within those game series a little bit, but keeps a certain spirit and code of mechanics in them as well. So if you don't like one of them, but you think he might have a good idea of how to make a good game, investigate the other two series, or even Queen's Wish, I guess, if you want. And you might find you something you really like in Spiderweb Software's lineup. And Slasher's Keep is probably reasonably cheaply priced. Torchlight 2 is worth every penny, even if it's like $20 American or something, or $30 Canadian. Yeah, yeah.